Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto was the Dragon God, the true father of all Saiyans. Naruto x Gine, Dragon Ball. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. Awakening of the Dragon God. Naruto's fingers traced the contours of his face in the mirror, lingering over the whisker marks that had defined him since birth. 3 years had passed since the Fourth Great Ninja War, and peace had settled across the shinobi world like a comfortable blanket, yet something stirred beneath his skin, restless and ancient. The dreams had started 6 weeks ago. Dreams of red skies and strange moons. Of people with tails who could fly, of battles that shook planets. Dreams that felt like memories. Splashing cold water on his face, he tried to shake the lingering images from his mind. A woman with gentle eyes and wild black hair. A crimson planet doomed to destruction. A race of warriors that somehow felt like his children. "You're losing it, Naruto," he muttered, voice echoing in his empty apartment. Kurama had been unusually quiet lately, retreating deep within their shared consciousness. When questioned, the Nine Tails would only growl something abu. Chi, old powers awakening, before falling silent again. The morning sun streamed through his window as Naruto dressed in his standard black and orange attire. As Hokage in training under Kakashi, he had responsibilities that wouldn't wait for mysterious dreams to explain themselves. He secured his headband and headed for the door, only to freeze mid-step as pain lanced through his skull. "They are calling to you across the stars. Across dimensions. Your children. Your creation. Can you not hear them?" The voice wasn't Kurama's. It was older, deeper, vast as the universe itself. Naruto staggered against the wall, clutching his head. "Who are you?" "I am you. The you before time began. The you who breathed life into the cosmos." Before he could question further, a knock at his door broke the moment. The voice receded like tide pulling away from shore. "Naruto." Shikamaru's voice called from outside. "You're late for the council meeting. Kakashi's about to send Anbu after you." "Coming." Naruto called, his voice steadier than he felt. The council meeting dragged on interminably. Border disputes, trade agreements, reconstruction budgets. Naruto found his mind wandering repeatedly to the strange dreams and the voice that had spoken to him. Something was happening to him, something beyond the normal boundaries of chakra and Jinchuriki powers. "Naruto." Kakashi's voice cut through his thoughts. "Your input on the expedition to investigate the energy anomalies." Naruto straightened, blinking rapidly. "Energy anomalies." Kakashi's visible eye narrowed slightly. "As I was explaining while you were daydreaming, we've detected unusual energy signatures northwest of the village. Not chakra. Something else entirely. I'm assembling a team to investigate." "I'll go," Naruto said immediately, surprising even himself with his eagerness. "I thought you might," Kakashi replied, the fabric of his mask shifting with what might have been a smile. "Shikamaru, Sai, and Hinata will accompany you. You leave at dawn." As the meeting adjourned, Hinata approached him with concern etched across her gentle features. "Naruto-kun, are you feeling all right? Your chakra seems different somehow." Of course she would notice. Those Byakugan eyes missed nothing. "Just tired," he lied, offering a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Strange dreams keeping me up." Hinata's pale EYs studied him with an intensity that had grown since the war. The shy girl who once couldn't meet his gaze now saw through him completely. "What kind of dreams?" she asked softly. Naruto hesitated. How could he explain dreams of alien worlds and people with tails who transformed under full moons? Of a woman whose name he somehow knew, Gine, though he'd never met her. "Just war stuff," he said finally. "Nothing to worry about." Her expression said she didn't believe him, but she nodded anyway. "Get some rest before tomorrow. The energy readings are unlike anything the sensory division has ever recorded." That night, the dreams came again, more vivid than before. He stood atop a mountain overlooking a red-earthed valley where beings with tails trained in combat, their movements fluid and powerful. They fought not with chakra but with a different energy that glowed and pulsed around their bodies. His mind supplied, though he didn't know how he knew the word. "Your children grow strong," said a voice beside him. Naruto turned to find a man who looked like himself, yet not, older, with ancient eyes that glowed golden in the crimson light. But they have forgotten their creator. I don't understand, Naruto said. I didn't create anyone. The figure smiled. You did. Or I did. We are one and the same, separated only by time and forgetting. I am Ryu, the dragon god, and you are my reincarnation. My essence, my power, my divine spark lives in you. That's impossible, Naruto protested. I'm just a shinobi from Konoha. A Jinchuriki. You are infinitely more, Ryu replied. Before the Sage of Six Paths. Before the Otsutsuki. Before chakra itself, I existed. I created worlds and life across dimensions. The Saiyans were my masterpiece, warriors with the potential for godhood. He gestured toward the training warriors below. I infused them with my divine energy, giving them the ability to transform, to grow stronger after every battle, to potentially achieve the golden light of divinity itself. If you're some god, why reincarnate as me? Why forget everything? Even gods tire, Naruto. After eons of existence, I chose to experience life as a mortal, to remember what it means to strive. To struggle, to love with a mortal heart. But now the veils between dimensions grow thin. My children face extinction. They need their god once more. Naruto woke gasping, sheets soaked with sweat. Dawn painted his walls gold, and with it came the realization that something within him had changed. He could feel it, a power deeper than chakra, older than the nine tails. Thrumming beneath his skin like the heartbeat of creation itself. The expedition team departed as planned, heading northwest through dense forests toward the anomalous energy readings. Sai flew above on an ink bird, scouting ahead, while Shikamaru consulted maps and calculations. Hinata activated her Byakugan periodically, scanning for threats or changes in the energy patterns. It's getting stronger, she reported midday, veins bulging around her eyes. But there's something strange. I can almost see through space itself, like the fabric of reality is thinning. Naruto felt it too, a pull toward something ancient and familiar. With each step, the foreign energy resonated more strongly within him, as though recognizing something in his blood, his essence. There's something else, Hinata added, her voice faltering. Naruto-kun, your chakra network, it's changing. There's a golden energy intertwining with your blue chakra and Kurama's red. Before he could respond, Sai descended rapidly. You need to see this. We've found ruins, unlike anything in our historical records. The ruins lay in a clearing that seemed to have appeared overnight, ancient stone structures that bore no resemblance to any known shinobi architecture. Massive pillars carved with unfamiliar symbols stretched toward the sky, and at the center stood a dais with a stone altar. These weren't here a week ago, Shikamaru said, examining the weathered stone. Our patrols would have reported it. They've always been here, Naruto found himself saying. Just in another dimension, bleeding into ours as the boundaries weaken. 3 pairs of eyes turned to him in surprise. How could you possibly know that? Shikamaru asked. Naruto had no answer that wouldn't sound insane. Instead, he approached the altar. Drawn by an irresistible pull. The stone was inscribed with symbols that should have been indecipherable, yet he understood them perfectly. To the dragon god who breathed life into warriors of Tail and Fury. Who granted them the power of transformation beneath moons, who gifted them with divine blood to one day ascend. He translated aloud, fingers tracing the engravings. You can read that? Sai asked, incredulous. Apparently, Naruto murmured, continuing around the altar. Here lies the gateway between worlds, sealed by divine will until the dragon god walks again in mortal form. As his fingers traced the final symbol, golden energy sparked from his skin to the stone. The entire structure began to hum with power, glowing sigils appearing across all the pillars surrounding them. Naruto, step back, Shikamaru shouted as the ground began to tremble. But Naruto couldn't move. The energy flowing through the ruins was flowing through him too, resonating with something ancient in his core. The 9 tails stirred within him, finally breaking his silence. This power, I've felt it before, Kurama growled in his mind. Long before I was created. This is the power that predates the sage himself. The center of the altar split open, revealing a swirling vortex of golden and blue energy. Images flashed within it. Red skies, strange cities, people with tails, battles that shook worlds. We need to report this to Kakashi-sama immediately, Sai said, creating an ink-bird messenger. Naruto-kun, please step away, Hinata urged, reaching for his arm. As her fingers brushed his skin, a shock of energy passed between them. Hinata gasped, her Byakugan activating involuntarily. Your chakra, it's not chakra anymore. It's becoming something else entirely. The vortex pulsed, expanding outward. Shikamaru's shadow jutsu activated instinctively, attempting to bind Naruto and pull him back, but the shadows simply passed through the golden aura now surrounding him. I have to go through, Naruto said, his voice overlaid with another, deeper tone. They're calling to me. Who's calling you? Hinata cried, still holding his arm despite the energy crackling between them. My children, the Saiyans. With those words, the vortex surged forward, engulfing Naruto in blinding light. He felt Hinata's grip torn away, heard his friends shouting his name, and then, nothing but the sensation of falling between dimensions, between realities, between the very fabric of existence itself. He was everywhere and nowhere, stretched across infinity before suddenly snapping back into solid form. Naruto fell to his knees, gasping for breath on alien soil. Red earth, crimson sky, two suns blazing overhead, planet Vegeta. The name came to him unbidden, knowledge or facing from some ancient memory not his own. Naruto staggered to his feet, taking in his surroundings. He stood on a ridge overlooking a valley where primitive structures dotted the landscape. In he distance rose a city of strange architecture, curved buildings and towers unlike anything in the shinobi world. His senses expanded outward, feeling the energy of thousands of beings, not chakra, but ki, wild and powerful. Warriors training, fighting, living with an intensity that burned like stars. Who are you? Demanded a harsh voice behind him. Naruto turned to find himself facing a man with spiky black hair and a tail wrapped around his waist. He wore armor with shoulder pads and a strange device over his left eye. I asked who you are, stranger, the warrior repeated, pressing a button on the device. Numbers and symbols flashed across its small screen. Your power level is fluctuating. Impossible to read. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, he replied, instinctively reaching for kunai that weren't there. He'd been transported across dimensions with only the clothes on his back. The warrior smirked. Never heard of you or your planet. You're not one of Frieza's men. A scout from another system. Before Naruto could respond, more warriors appeared, surrounding him with aggressive stances. All bore the same distinctive feature, brown tails wrapped around their waists. Take him to the interrogation center. The first warrior ordered. King Vegeta will want to know how an outsider breached our planetary defenses. Naruto assessed his options. He could fight. The power wit in him surged at the mere thought of battle, but these were the people from his dreams. The ones the voice had called his children. I'll go willingly, he said, raising his hands. I mean no harm. The warriors exchanged skeptical glances but maintained their guard as they escorted him down from the ridge toward the distant city. As they walked, Naruto observed everything with keen interest. Gravity here was heavier than Earth's, but his body adjusted quickly. The air carried unfamiliar scents, metallic and sharp. The warriors around him moved with natural grace and power, their key sign. Aturs burning bright to his newfound senses. What kind of being are you? Asked one warrior, younger than the others. You look Saiyan, but you have no tail and those marks on your face. I'm human, Naruto replied, though the word felt increasingly inaccurate. From a planet called Earth. Never heard of it, grunted the leader. Must be in some backwater system Frieza hasn't bothered conquering yet. They approached the outskirts of the city, where Naruto began noticing the social structure of Saiyan society. Warriors trained in combat areas, children as young as 5 sparring with surprising ferocity. Others returned from what appeared to be landing bays where spherical spacecraft were docked. A group of Saiyans passed by, carrying carcasses of enormous beasts for what appeared to be a communal feast. Among them walked a female Saiyan who stopped abruptly upon seeing Naruto, her eyes widening in recognition though they'd never met. Time seemed to slow as their gazes locked. She was smaller than most warriors, with gentler features and wild black hair pulled back. Something in her eyes spoke of compassion uncommon among her kind. Gine. The name came to him as clearly as if he'd known her his entire life. "Keep moving, outsider," one of his escorts growled, shoving him forward, breaking the moment. But Naruto had seen her reaction. She had felt something too, a connection that transcended understanding. She stared after him as he was marched toward a massive structure in the center of the city. The interrogation center was a stark, utilitarian building with cells designed to contain powerful beings. Naruto was placed in one with energy fields rather than physical bars, technology far beyond anything in the shinobi world. Left alone, he closed his eyes and sought Kurama within his mindscape. He found the nine tails unusually subdued, curled within the familiar space that had changed subtly, golden light now intermingled with the usual blue-tinged environment. "Kurama, what's happening to me?" Naruto asked, approaching the massive fox. "Something I never thought possible," Kurama replied, his voice rumbling through the mindscape. "You were becoming what you always were." Before the sage created us-tailed beasts, he spoke of powers that existed before chakra, divine energies that shaped the very cosmos. The fox's massive eyes studied Naruto. "I sensed it when I was first sealed within you, a dormant power unlike anything I'd encountered. I believed it was simply your unusual chakra, but it was something far older. The voice in my dreams called me the Dragon God. Said I created the Saiyan race." Kurama snorted. "Gods, always so dramatic. But the power I feel awakening in you, it could indeed be divine in origin." There can be. Our session was interrupted as the cell door opened. Two guards entered, followed by a Saiyan in more elaborate armor, with a cape and a goatee. His stern expression and commanding presence marked him as a leader. "I am Paragus, chief advisor to King Vegeta," he announced. "You've caused quite a stir, stranger. Our scouters can't read your power level, and you appeared out of nowhere on a planet with the most advanced defense systems in the galaxy." Naruto stood, meeting the Saiyan's gaze directly. "As I told your warriors, my name is Naruto Uzumaki. I came here through what you might call a dimensional rift." Paragus raised an eyebrow. "Dimensional travel, interesting claim. And your purpose here?" How could he explain dreams of divinity and ancient connections to a race he'd never met before today? Naruto opted for simplicity. "I'm following visions that led me to your world. I believe there's a connection between us, between me and the Saiyan people." "What kind of connection?" "That's what I'm here to discover." Paragus studied him silently for a moment before gesturing to the guards. "Take him to the examination chamber. I want a full biological analysis. If he has Saiyan blood, we'll find it." The examination was thorough and uncomfortable, involving strange machines that scanned his body with energies he'd never encountered. Scientists muttered in confusion as readings appeared on screens. Speaking a language he shouldn't understand but somehow did. "Impossible," said one, adjusting settings on a device. "His cellular structure keeps shifting between patterns. So, Metime's registering is similar to Saiyan, sometimes completely alien. His energy signature is equally perplexing," added another. "It contains elements of Ki, but something else too, something our instruments can't categorize." Paragus watched with growing interest. "Is he a threat?" "Unknown," replied the lead scientist. "But his power, whatever its nature, is immense. Possibly greater than any Saiyan on record, including the king himself." This proclamation caused a stir among the guards. Saiyans respected power above all else, Naruto realized. The dynamic in the room had shifted subtly. There was caution now. Even a hint of deference. Paragus dismissed the scientists and approached Naruto directly. "I'm not sure what you are, but King Vegeta will want to meet you. Few beings in the universe register power that our scouters cannot quantify." As they prepared to escort him to the palace, alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. Guards rushed to viewing screens showing the city's exterior. "Planetary Defense Force has detected incoming ships," reported one. "Not registered with Frieza's fleet. Raiders from the Koran sector." Paragus demanded. "Unknown origin. 6 vessels, heavily armed." Paragus turned to Naruto, suspicion darkening his features. "Is this your doing? A distraction while your allies attack?" "I came alone," Naruto insisted. "I have no allies in this dimension." Before Paragus could respond, explosions rocked the building. The viewing screen showed energy blasts raining down on the city from the ships now visible in the crimson sky. Mobilize all available warriors, Paragus commanded, rushing toward the exit. He paused, giving Naruto a hard look. This cell is designed to hold beings that can destroy planets. If you're involved in this attack, staying here won't save you when we return. Left alone as chaos erupted around him, Naruto felt no inclination to escape. Instead, he closed his eyes, extending his senses outward. The attacking ships contained beings with key signatures different from the Saiyans, colder, more mechanical somehow. Their intent was clear: maximum destruction. More concerning was what he sensed beneath. The city, a resonance with the ruins he'd discovered in the shinobi world. Another gateway, another thin spot between dimensions. The attackers hadn't chosen this location randomly. The cell's energy field suddenly flickered and died as power fluctuations hit the building. Naruto stepped out, decision made. Whatever his connection to the Saiyans might be, he couldn't stand by while innocent people were killed. He made his way through corridors now abandoned, following the sounds of battle. Outside, chaos reigned. Buildings burned as energy blasts continued raining from above. Saiyan warriors took to the sky, engaging attackers who had now landed, humanoid beings with metallic components integrated into their bodies. Naruto launched himself into the fray, discovering that his ability to mold chakra worked differently here. When he attempted a Rasengan, golden energy swirled instead of blue, growing larger and more powerful than any he'd created before. He slammed the golden Rasengan into an attacker bearing down on a Saiyan child, disintegrating the cyborg completely. Other attackers turned toward him, scanners identifying a new threat. Target acquired, announced one in a mechanical voice. Priority Alpha, capture the awakened one. They came at him in coordinated attack patterns, firing energy weapons that would have vaporized normal beings. Naruto moved with speed that surprised even him. The divine power flowing more freely with each passing moment. Shadow Clone Jutsu, he called, forming the familiar hand sign. Golden light flashed, and instead of the usual dozen clones, hundreds appeared. Each radiating the same divine energy. The Saiyans paused in their own battles, staring in shock at the display of power unlike anything in their experience. The clones engaged the attackers with devastating efficiency, golden Rasengans blazing. As Naruto fought, he spotted a familiar figure across the battlefield, Gine, defending a group of Saiyan children, her fighting style more defensive than the aggressive approach of other warriors. She was being driven back by 3 attackers. Without thinking, Naruto flashed to her side with speed beyond anything he'd managed before. Appearing in a flash of golden light reminiscent of the 4th Hokage's technique, but without seals or markers. "Stay behind me," he told her, meeting her astonished gaze. "Who are you?" she asked, voice soft despite the chaos around them. "A friend," he replied, turning to face the attackers who had paused, their sensors recalibrating. Target priority confirmed, one stated. The Dragon God awakens. Protocol Omega activated. The title sent a shock through Naruto. How did these beings know that name? They attacked with renewed intensity, but now Naruto fought with purpose, protecting Gine and the children. Golden chakra formed a cloak around him, similar to his Nine Tails mode but with subtle differences. Scales appeared within the energy, and his eyes shifted from blue to slitted gold. With a roar that shook the ground, Naruto unleashed a wave of pure energy that disintegrated the attackers and created a protective dome around the area. Saiyan warriors stared in awe as the golden energy expanded outward, selectively destroying enemy forces while leaving Saiyans unharmed. In the sudden silence that followed, Naruto stood at the center of a crater, golden energy still swirling around him. The attacking ships attempted retreat, but with a gesture from Naruto, golden energy dragons manifested, coiling around the vessels and crushing them. As the energy receded, Naruto staggered, unused to wielding such power. Gine rushed forward to steady him, her touch sending a jolt of recognition through both of them. "You're him, aren't you?" she whispered, searching his face. "The one from the ancient paintings in the sacred caves." The creator. Naruto met her gaze, finding something there that resonated with his soul. "I don't know what I am anymore. But I'm beginning to remember." Saiyan warriors surrounded them, led by Paragus and another Saiyan with a distinctive flame-shaped hairstyle and royal armor. "What manner of being are you?" demanded the royal figure, obviously King Vegeta himself. No Saiyan can create energy constructs with sentience or replicate themselves hundreds of times. Paragus stepped forward. The raiders called him Dragon God. They came specifically for him. Murmurs spread through the gathered warriors. An older Saiyan with ritual scars pushed through the crowd. The sacred texts speak of the Dragon God, the divine being who gave Saiyans our power to transform, our strength, our very blood. King Vegeta scoffed. Ancient myths. We are Saiyans, the strongest warrior race in the universe. We need no creator gods. Then explain what you just witnessed. Gine said, surprising everyone with her boldness in addressing the king. He destroyed enemies our best warriors struggled against. His energy protected us while destroying them. The king's expression darkened. Take him to the palace. I want answers, not legends. He turned to Gine. You, female, since he seems to have chosen to protect you specifically, you will attend as well. The Saiyan palace reflected their warrior culture, functional rather than ornate, with trophies of conquest displayed prominently. Naruto was brought to a great hall where Saiyan elites gathered, eyeing him with mixture of suspicion, awe, and in some cases, hostility. Gine remained near him, her presence somehow calming the turmoil of awakening memories and powers. She seemed equally drawn to him, stealing glances when she thought others weren't watching. The raiders were after you specifically, King Vegeta stated, seated on a stone throne. They called you by a title from our ancient mythology. Explain yourself. Naruto stepped forward, feeling Kurama stirring within him, lending strength. I come from another dimension, he began, a world of shinobi who use energy called chakra instead of ki. 3 days ago, I began having dreams of your world, of planet Vegeta and the Saiyan people. He described the ruins, the portal, the voice that had called him the Dragon God. As he spoke, the older scarred Saiyan nodded, recognizing elements from sacred texts. The Divine One's return was prophesied, the elder said. When the boundaries between worlds thin, he would walk among us again. Convenient prophecy, sneered a Saiyan general. More likely he's an agent of some power seeking to infiltrate us. Perhaps even Frieza testing our defenses. Frieza, Naruto asked, the name triggering another flash of prescient knowledge, a tyrant who would destroy this planet, killing all but a handful of Saiyans. Our benefactor, King Vegeta replied with barely concealed resentment. The ruler of this sector of space. Another Saiyan stepped forward, his resemblance to Gine suggesting kinship. I am Bardock, Combat Division Leader. If you're some god, prove it. The sacred caves speak of the Dragon God's ability to awaken power in others, to see past and future, to travel between stars with a thought. Naruto considered the challenge. The power within him continued to grow. Memories of divine knowledge surfacing. Without fully understanding how he knew to do it, he raised his hand, palm outward. Come forward, warrior, he said to Bardock. Bardock approached cautiously. Naruto placed his palm on the Saiyan's forehead, golden energy flowing between them. Bardock gasped, his eyes widening as visions filled his mind. The future of planet Vegeta, the betrayal by Frieza. The survival of his son Kakarot on a distant blue planet. When Naruto removed his hand, Bardock staggered back, breathing heavily. I saw destruction. Frieza destroys our world, but a child survives, my son, and becomes the legendary Super Saiyan. This pronouncement caused uproar among the Saiyans. The legendary Super Saiyan was their most sacred myth, a golden war. Rear of unmatched power that appeared once a millennium. King Vegeta rose from his throne, face darkening with rage. Treasonous speech. Frieza is our ally. He fears you, Naruto said quietly, yet, his voice carried to every corner of the hall. He fears what Saiyans might become. The potential I placed in your blood when I created your race. The words emerged naturally, memories continuing to surface. The king stared at him with a mixture of outrage and uncertainty. If you truly created us, King Vegeta challenged, then you know of our most sacred place. The birthplace of our race. Naruto nodded. The crystal caverns beneath the southern mountains. Where the first Saiyans emerged from energy pools infused with divine power. Where the paintings show your creation and the gifts I bestowed upon your ancestors. A hush fell over the gathered Saiyans. Only their most trusted elders and royalty knew of this place. Take him there, King Vegeta ordered. If he is what he claims, the sacred crystals will resonate with his energy. If not, he left the consequence unspoken. As guards prepared to escort him, Naruto turned to find Gine still watching him intently. "You should come too," he said softly. "I don't know why, but your presence feels important." She nodded, ignoring the disapproving looks from other warriors. As a female who chose food preparation over combat, she held little status in their society. Yet something about her drew Naruto like a beacon. The journey to the southern mountains took them away from the city into rugged wilderness. Red rocks towered in impossible formations, and strange beasts roamed the plains. Bardock had insisted on joining them, still shaken by the visions Naruto had shown him. "If what I saw is true," he said as they traveled, "Frieza destroys our world within the year. Millions of Saiyans dead in an instant. Why would he do such a thing?" Gine asked, walking beside them. "We serve him loyally. He fears the Super Saiyan legend," Bardock replied. "And now this stranger appears, awakening powers we thought mythical." As they hiked through a narrow canyon, Naruto sensed Gine falling into step beside him. Though they had barely spoken, he felt a familiarity with her that defied explanation. "The children you saved," she said quietly. "One of them was my son, Raditz." "Thank you." Naruto smiled. "You fight differently than other Saiyans. Defensively, protectively." She looked away, embarrassed. "I'm not a natural warrior. A disappointment to my race." "Or perhaps you embody qualities I valued when creating the Saiyans," Naruto replied, the words emerging from some deeper knowledge. "Strength without compassion is just brutality." She studied him with curious eyes. "You don't seem like a god. You seem kind." "Maybe gods should be kind," he answered with a smile. Their conversation was interrupted as they reached the entrance to the Crystal Caverns, a narrow fissure in the red rock face, guarded by ancient stone statues of ape-like beings reaching toward the sky. "Only royal blood can open the passage," explained the elder who had accompanied them. King Vegeta stepped forward, pressing his palm against a specific point on the rock face. Energy flowed from his hand, and the fissure widened, revealing a pathway descending into darkness. "If you are an imposter," the king warned Naruto, "the sacred energies within will destroy you." Naruto nodded, undeterred. As they entered the cavern, bioluminescent crystals awakened, bathing the passageway in blue-green light. The deeper they went, the stronger Naruto felt the resonance with his awakening powers. The passage opened into a vast underground chamber where massive crystals grew from floor to ceiling. At the center lay a still pool of luminescent liquid that pulsed with life and energy. "The first pool," whispered the elder reverently, "where the Divine One mixed his blood with the elements of our world to create the first Saiyans." Around the chamber, ancient paintings covered the walls, depictions of a golden being with whisker marks teaching early Saiyans to harness ki, to transform under the full moon, to reach toward the stars. The resemblance to Naruto was undeniable. As he approached the pool, the liquid began to glow more intensely, rising to form shapes, dragons of pure energy that coiled through the air around him. The crystals throughout the cavern resonated in harmony, glowing gold rather than blue-green. "The crystals recognize him," gasped the elder, falling to his knees. Naruto reached the edge of the pool, memories flooding back with overwhelming clarity. He had stood here before, eons ago, combining his divine essence with the elements of this world to create a race of warriors with unlimited potential for growth. He had given them their transformations, their Zenkai ability to grow stronger after each battle, their potential to achieve godhood themselves. Without conscious thought, he stepped into the pool. The liquid embraced him like an old friend, soaking through his clothes to his skin. Golden light erupted from within him, shooting upward through the cavern ceiling, visible for miles across the planet. Within the mindscape, Kurama watched in awe as Naruto's spiritual form changed, growing vast and draconic, golden scales and ancient wisdom overlaying his human appearance. "You truly were a god," the Nine Tails murmured. "I still am," Naruto replied, his voice resonating with power. "And so much more is coming back to me now." In the physical world, Naruto rose from the pool, golden energy cascading from his form. The divine power had fully awakened, transforming him. His eyes glowed gold, his whisker marks more pronounced, a faint pattern of scales visib beneath his skin when the light caught him. The Saiyans, even King Vegeta, knelt before the undeniable manifestation of their creator deity. "You have forgotten your origins," Naruto said, his voice carrying the wisdom of ages. You were created not just as warriors, but as protectors of the cosmic balance. Your strength was meant to safeguard worlds, not conquer them. He turned to King Vegeta. Your alliance with Frieza corrupts my purpose for your race. He will betray you, destroying this world to prevent the rise of the Super Saiyan. The king's face registered shock, then growing anger. If you are truly our creator, help us fight Frieza. With your power, we could rule the galaxy ourselves. Naruto shook his head. More conquest is not the answer. But I will help you save your people from the coming destruction. As they spoke, a new presence appeared at the cavern entrance, Paragus, accompanied by several elite guards. My king, he announced, we've received word from Frieza's ship. He's moved up his schedule and will arrive in 3 days' time. Bardock stepped forward, just as the vision showed. He comes to destroy us. Debate erupted among the Saiyans, some calling for immediate evacuation, others for preemptive attack. Through it all, Gine made her way to Naruto's side. You knew this would happen, she said softly. Is that why you've returned now? Dimensional boundaries thinned at this precise moment in time for a reason, Naruto replied. I believe I'm meant to save what I created. Their eyes met, and something passed between them, recognition beyond the physical. A connection that transcended the normal boundaries of acquaintance. There's a child, she whispered. My youngest son, Kakarot. He's still in the incubation chamber. According to his power reading, they plan to send him to a remote planet called Earth. If what Bardock saw is true, Earth, Naruto repeated, the name sending ripples through his awakened memories. My human home in another dimension. The parallels cannot be coincidence. He placed his hand gently on her shoulder. Show me this child. As the Saiyan leaders continued their heated debate, Naruto and Gine slipped away. Returning to the city, she led him to a scientific facility where Saiyan infants were monitored in development pods. There, she said, approaching one of the smaller pods. Kakarot, born with a low power level, destined for a frontier world. Naruto looked upon the infant floating in nutrient fluid, and something resonated deep within his divine consciousness. This child old become Goku, the greatest defender Earth would ever know. The Super Saiyan of legend. Somehow, Naruto knew this with absolute certainty. His destiny lies on Earth, Naruto confirmed. But not as a conqueror. As a protector. Gine's eyes filled with tears. I'll never see him grow up. Without thinking, Naruto took her hand. The future isn't set. Now that I've awakened, many possibilities exist. A commotion outside interrupted them, Saiyan warriors mobilizing, ships preparing for launch. King Vegeta has ordered preparation for war, explained a scientist rushing past. All available warriors to report for briefing. Naruto sensed the futility of their plans. Even with his newly awakened power, changing the course of this timeline might have catastrophic consequences across dimensions. Some events were fixed points. Kakarot becoming Earth's protector, the near extinction of the Saiyans driving the survivors to greater heights. Yet as he looked at Gine, he felt a responsibility to save what he could. To preserve enough of his creation that the Saiyan legacy would continue. There's a third option, he said finally. Not evacuation or war, a hidden sanctuary where select Saiyans could survive. Unknown to Frieza, Gine looked at him with growing hope. Where? Between dimensions. A pocket reality where time passes differently, where your people could grow stronger, remember their true purpose. Perhaps one day rejoin the universe when ready. As they spoke, Bardock found them, his expression grim. The king plans a preemptive strike against Frieza's approaching ship. It's suicide. I know, Naruto replied, which is why we need another solution. He explained his plan for a dimensional sanctuary, using his awakened powers to create a safe haven outside normal space-time. You need to select those who go carefully, he cautioned. Those who can accept a new purpose beyond conquest. Who can build rather than destroy. Families, Gine suggested immediately. Children and their protectors. Scientists. Cultural preservationists. Bardock nodded slowly. A colony to preserve our race without Frieza's knowledge. But the king will never agree. His pride won't allow retreat. Then we don't ask permission, Naruto said firmly. We save those we can. Over the next day, while the military prepared for what would certainly be a devastating defeat, Naruto, Gine, And Bardock secretly identified Saiyans for evacuation. Those with the right mindset, the necessary skills for colony building, children with potential. Naruto spent hours in meditation, communing with his fully awakened divine consciousness, learning to control powers he hadn't wielded in eons. Creating a pocket dimension would take enormous energy, but with the divine power now flowing freely, he believed it possible. On the second day, as Frieza's ship appeared in the planet's orbit, panic began spreading. King Vegeta led a delegation to meet the tyrant, ostensibly to pay respects but actually planning assassination. "It's time," Naruto told his small group of conspirators. "The king's actions will accelerate Frieza's plans. We have hours, not days." In a remote canyon far from the capital, 300 selected Saiyans gathered, families, scientists, healers, and warriors loyal to Bardock. Gine had arranged transport for her infant son's incubation pod, though with reluctance. "His destiny lies on Earth," she acknowledged sadly. "But perhaps I could go with him." Naruto shook his head gently. "His journey must be made alone. It shapes who he becomes, the Empion who will avenge your race and achieve the Super Saiyan transformation." As they prepared the final evacuees, a scout arrived with alarming news. The king's assassination attempt failed. Frieza has killed him and the royal guard. His ship has moved into position above the planet's core. Naruto felt the timelines converging toward a fixed point. Planet Vegeta's destruction was imminent and unavoidable. He stepped to the center of the gathered Saiyans, divine power swirling around him. "I cannot save your planet," he announced, his voice carrying to all present. "Some events are fixed points in the cosmic timeline. But I can save you, the seed from which Saiyan culture will be reborn." He raised his hands, golden energy spiraling outward, creating a massive portal unlike the one that had brought him here. This one he shaped consciously, crafting a pocket dimension with planetary features similar to Vegeta: red earth, compatible atmosphere, suitable gravity. "Step through," he instructed. "Your new home awaits, a place to remember your origins, to reclaim your role as protectors rather than conquerors." As the Saiyans began entering the portal, Bardock approached Naruto. "I'm staying. Someone needs to face Frieza. Even in defeat, someone needs to witness what he does, so our descendants never forget." Naruto clasped the warrior's shoulder. "Your son will avenge you. I've seen it." Bardock nodded, then turned to Gine, embracing her briefly. "Protect our people. Teach them what we should have been." With that, he launched into the sky, heading toward Frieza's ship in a final act of defiance. As the last evacuees entered the portal, only Naruto and Gine remained. Above them, the sky had taken on an ominous glow as Frieza prepared his planet-destroying attack. "You should go," Naruto told her. "They'll need your wisdom, your compassion." Gine looked up at him, conflict evident in her eyes. "And you, where will you go when this world is destroyed?" "Back to my dimension, I think. I still don't fully understand why my divine self chose to incarnate there, but there must be purpose to it." She stepped closer, placing a hand on his chest where the divine energy pulsed strongest. "Will you remember us? Remember me?" The question carried weight beyond its simple words. Naruto covered her hand with his own, feeling the connection between them, creator and creation. Yet something more personal too. "I'll remember everything now," he promised. "And perhaps, when dimensions align again." The sky flared brilliant white as Frieza's death ball descended toward the planet's core. Time seemed to slow as Naruto made a split-second decision. He pulled Gine close, creating a bubble of divine energy around them both as planet Vegeta began to fracture beneath their feet. "Trust me," he whispered, as reality itself bent around them. In the vacuum of space, planet Vegeta exploded in a cataclysm visible across the galaxy. Frieza laughed in triumph, aware that the legacy of the Saiyans, and their creator God, had slipped beyond his reach. Between dimensions, between realities, Naruto held Gine as they traveled through the cosmic void, the divine POW were carrying them toward an uncertain future and the continuation of a story that had begun eons ago, when a dragon god first breathed life into warriors of Tail and Fury. Chapter 1 End. Chapter 2, Bloodlines Across Stars. Crimson dawn light spilled across the makeshift shelter Naruto had constructed at the edge of the wilderness. 3 days had passed since his arrival on planet Vegeta, 3 days of cautious exploration. gathering information, and piecing together fragments of memories that weren't entirely his own. Each sunrise on this alien world unlocked something new within him, divine no. WL edge surfacing like bubbles rising through deep water. Naruto sat cross-legged on a flat stone, eyes closed in meditation as golden energy rippled faintly across his skin. Within his mindscape, Ama watched with uncharacteristic reverence as Naruto's spiritual form continued its gradual transformation. "You're changing," the Nine Tails observed. "Your chakra pathways are restructuring themselves to channel this divine power." "It feels like remembering rather than changing," Naruto replied, examining the golden scales that now appeared on his spiritual arms during these deep meditations. "Like I've always been this, just sleeping. And what happens when you fully awaken? Will Naruto Uzumaki still exist, or only the dragon god?" The question hung uncomfortably between them. Naruto had no answer. Outside the mindscape, he opened his eyes as sensitive hearing detected approaching footsteps, light and careful, but purposeful. He recognized the unique energy signature before she appeared around the rocky outcropping. "You're up early," he said as Gine came into view, carrying a cloth-wrapped bundle. "Saiyans don't require much sleep," she replied with a small smile, her voice softer than most of her warrior race. "I brought you food. You've been avoiding the city." The unspoken question lingered as she unwrapped smoked meat and strange purple fruits. After their encounter at the Crystal Caverns, King Vegeta had grudgingly acknowledged Naruto's significance but remained deeply suspicious, posting guards to honor him, thinly disguised surveillance that Naruto had easily slipped away from. "Your king doesn't appreciate gods who disagree with him," Naruto said, accepting the offered food with gratitude. The flavors were alien but satisfying, the meat gamey and rich, the fruit startlingly sweet with an afterburn like cinnamon. Gine settled beside him on an adjacent rock. Unlike most Saiyan women who wore armor identical to the males, she dressed in simpler garments, practical dark clothing with minimal protective plating only at vital points. Her tail wrapped neatly around her waist, a constant reminder of her alien nature despite her humanoid appearance. "The king has always believed strength exists to dominate," she said, watching him eat. "The alliance with Frieza has only reinforced this. We conquer planets for him, and in return, he provides technology and doesn't destroy us." "A devil's bargain," Naruto murmured. "One made before my time." She plucked a blade of red-tinted grass, twirling it between her fingers. "Your appearance has created quite the stir. Half the population believes you're our divine creator returned. The other half thinks you're a cunning shapeshifter trying to manipulate us." "And what do you believe?" She met his eyes directly. Something uncommonly bold for someone of her status in Saiyan society. "I believe you're both. The divine being from our oldest legends, but also something else, someone shaped by different experiences." Her perception startled him. Most Saiyans he'd encountered displayed impressive battle instincts but little philosophical depth. "You're right," he acknowledged. "I am Naruto Uzumaki, raised as a human shinobi on a planet called Earth, but from a different dimensional plane than the Earth your son will eventually reach. I'm also apparently the reincarnation of Ryu, the dragon god who created the Saiyan race eons ago." "How does that work, being two beings at once?" Naruto ran a hand through his spiky blonde hair, considering. "It's like having memories of another life gradually returning. Each day, I remember more of what I once was, what I did. The divine power grows stronger, but I'm still me, still Naruto." Gine nodded, seeming to accept this improbable duality with remarkable ease. "That explains why you don't act like a typical deity. No demands for worship or declarations of cosmic law." He laughed, the sound echoing off the red stone formations around them. "Is that what gods usually do here?" "According to our legends, yes." Her eyes crinkled with amusement. "The gods demand, threaten, occasionally bestow gifts if properly appeased. They don't know. Our Mali sit on rocks eating taffa fruit and asking questions about Saiyan culture." Their shared laughter faded as a shadow passed overhead, a Saiyan patrol in flight formation, scanning the wilderness. Gine tensed slightly. "You're taking a risk coming here," Naruto observed. "They're watching you too." She shrugged with forced nonchalance. "I'm already considered unusual for a Saiyan. I work in meat distribution rather than combat." My association with you is just another oddity. Why meat distribution? He asked, genuinely curious. Most Saiyans he'd encountered were obsessively focused on battle. I lack the killer instinct, she admitted, looking away as though confessing something shameful. I can fight when necessary, but I take no pleasure in it. After failing several purging missions, I was reassigned. Purging missions. Her expression darkened. Clearing planets for Frieza's empire. Eliminating native populations so the worlds can be sold to the highest bidder. The C.A. Sewell description of genocide chilled Naruto. What had his divine self created? Or had their original purpose been corrupted over millennia? As if reading his thoughts, Gine added softly, the oldest cave paintings show Saiyans protecting other races, standing against cosmic threats. I sometimes wonder what changed us. Before Naruto could respond, a more powerful energy signature approached rapidly from above, not attempting stealth, but announcing itself with flaring ki. Bardock, Gine said, standing quickly. She hesitated. Kakarot's father. The warrior landed with controlled force, cracking the red earth beneath his boots. Unlike his first hostile encounter with Naruto, Bardock's demeanor now held reluctant respect mixed with lingering suspicion. The visions Naruto had shown him had clearly left their mark. The king demands your presence, he announced without preamble, eyes flicking between Naruto and Gine with unreadable intensity. A ship has arrived from Cold Empire's Central Command. They're asking questions about unusual energy signatures detected 3 days ago. Naruto stood, divine energy automatically responding to the potential threat, causing a subtle golden glow around his form. Frieza, no, an advance representative. Bardock crossed his arms. You should know that rumors of your presence have spread throughout the city. If Frieza's forces are investigating, it won't be long before he takes personal interest. The three exchanged significant glances. Frieza's arrival would accelerate events toward planet Vegeta's destruction, a fixed point in timeline that Naruto's awakening memories identified as crucial to future events across multiple dimensions. I'll come, Naruto decided. Better to assess the threat directly. Gine stepped forward. I should return to my duties. Too much association with the situation could draw unwanted attention. Bardock's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. The king requested your presence as well. Apparently, our visitor has heard about the female Saiyan who first recognized our divine guest. Tension crackled between Bardock and Gine, an unspoken history that Naruto could sense but not decipher. Despite sharing a child, their interaction lacked intimacy, suggesting Saiyan relationships operated differently than human ones. The flight to the capital showcased planet Vegeta's stark beauty, towering mesas of red stone, deep canyons carved by ancient rivers, bizarre vegetation adapted to the harsh environment. Naruto followed slightly behind his Saiyan escorts, observing how naturally they took to the air. Their ki manipulation instinctive in ways that chakra use was for experienced shinobi. The city appeared suddenly around a mountain face, a sprawling complex of curved buoy L-dings constructed from native stone and advanced alloys, centered around the royal palace with its distinctive spire configurations. Landing platforms accommodated dozens of spherical space pods, while training grounds occupied nearly a third of the urban area, a testament to Saiyan priorities. Unlike his first entry under guard, Naruto now drew open stares from citizens. Some quickly averted their eyes in superstitious fear. Others watched with undisguised curiosity or skepticism. Children pointed until parents hurriedly ushered them inside. Word had clearly spread about the supposed return of their creator deity. The palace central chamber had been rearranged since Naruto's previous visit. King Vegeta occupied his stone throne on a raised dais, but now an ornate hovering chair faced him, occupied by a slender, pale purple-skinned humanoid with horns and a long tail. The being wore elaborate armor different from Saiyan design, more decorative, with flowing white cape attachments. Qui, Bardock whispered to Naruto. One of Frieza's officers, not his strongest, but dangerous and completely loyal. King Vegeta's expression remained impassive as they entered, though his tail twitched with barely contained tension. Here is the visitor I mentioned, Commander Qui. As you can see, merely an unusual traveler from a distant system who possesses interesting energy manipulation techniques. Qui's scouter beeped rapidly as it attempted to quantify Naruto's power level. The alien's lipless mouth curled into a frown of confusion as the device produced contradictory readings. Interesting indeed, Kui remarked. Voice high and slightly nasal. My scouter can't establish a consistent reading. Almost as if your power is fluctuating between dimensional planes. The precise term, analogy, sent a ripple of unease through the assembled Saiyans. Kui clearly possessed more scientific knowledge than expected of a mere military commander. Naruto stepped forward, allowing the calculate-d amount of his divine aura to manifest, enough to impress without revealing his full potential. I'm a researcher of interdimensional energy phenomena. My experiments sometimes affect readings on conventional detection equipment. Researcher. Kui's eyes narrowed skeptically. From which academic institution, under whose authority do you conduct these experiments? My own authority, Naruto replied simply. The alien's tail flicked in irritation at the non-answer. Lord Frieza takes great interest in unusual energy signatures, particularly those that register similarities to divine wavelengths. The room temperature seemed to drop several degrees. King Vegeta leaned forward slightly, his earlier dismissive attitude replaced with sharper attention. Divine wavelengths? The king inquired with forced casualness. I wasn't aware Frieza's empire concerned itself with theological matters. Kui smiled thinly. Lord Frieza is a being of exceptional power, approaching divinity himself. Naturally, he monitors potential competition. The threat hung in the air, barely concealed. Naruto maintained a neutral expression, though internally he accessed more of his awakening memories. Searching for information about Frieza and his race. Fragments surfaced. The Cold family, their natural mutation producing exceptional power, their pathological fear of any challenge to their authority. Particularly the Saiyan potential for transformation. I assure you, Naruto said carefully, my research is purely academic. I have no political ambitions within Frieza's territories. Nevertheless, Kui continued, turning to King Vegeta, Lord Frieza will want to evaluate this visitor personally. I suggest you maintain his presence here until my lord's arrival, which has been moved forward in the schedule. He should grace planet Vegeta within 3 standard days. The timeline acceleration confirmed Bardock's vision. Naruto exchanged a quick glance with Gine, who had remained silent throughout the exchange. Her expression carefully blank but eyes communicating alarm. After Kui's departure to return to his ship, the throne room erupted in tense discussion. King Vegeta paced aggressively, his cape swirling with each turn. This is your doing, he accused Naruto. Your appearance has drawn Frieza's attention ahead of schedule. If he suspects any hint of rebellion or independent power, he'll destroy us all. He already plans to destroy you, Naruto stated bluntly. The visions I showed Bardock weren't possibilities, they were probabilities approaching certainty. The king's face contorted with rage and fear. Then what use are you, God or not? If you can foresee our destruction but not prevent it. A valid question that had haunted Naruto since awakening to his divine heritage. If he truly created the Saiyan race, didn't he bear responsibility for their fate? Yet the interdimensional knowledge surfacing in his consciousness warned of catastrophic timeline distort. Ions should certain fixed points be altered. Some events serve as nexus points across multiple dimensional planes, Naruto explained, drawing on newly accessible divine understanding. Planet Vegeta's destruction creates ripple effects that ultimately lead to greater goods, including the eventual defeat of Frieza himself by a Saiyan survivor. Cold comfort for those who die in the meantime, Bardock growled. There may be another option, Naruto said slowly. Not preventing the planet's destruction, but saving more of your people than the handful that survive in the primary timeline. This caught the king's attention. Explain. Quote, a pocket dimension, a sanctuary hidden between realities where selected Saiyans could survive, unknown to Frieza, until the proper time to re-emerge. The concept clearly stretched the king's understanding, but desperation made him receptive. How many could be saved this way? Hundreds, perhaps thousands with proper preparation. But we would need to select carefully those willing to build a new Saiyan culture rather than simply waiting to resume conquest. King Vegeta's expression darkened. You wish to fundamentally change what it means to be Saiyan. I wish to restore what it originally meant, Naruto countered. Before your race became planetary exterminators for a tyrant. The king dismissed most attendants with a sharp gesture, leaving only his most trusted advisors. Bardock, And, surprisingly, Gine. The female stays because she has already seen the sacred caves and apparently holds our divine guest's confidence, King Vegeta expressed with thinly veiled disapproval when Paragus questioned her presence. For the next several hours, they debated strategy. The king alternated between denial, rage, and reluctant planning. Naruto provided what insights he could without revealing everything his awakening divine consciousness foresaw. Certain knowledge could itself alter timelines in unpredictable ways. I still say we should fight, Paragus argued. With the Divine One's power alongside our elite warriors. No, Naruto interrupted firmly. Frieza at his current power level could destroy this solar system with minimal effort. Direct confrontation now would only ensure total extinction rather than partial survival. As sunlight faded into Vegeta's brief, spectacular sunset, plans gradually solidified. The king would maintain appearance of normalcy while secretly selecting candidates for evacuation to Naruto's dimensional sanctuary. Bardock would coordinate with off-world Saiyan teams, recalling those most suitable, while keeping communication channels secure from Frieza's monitoring systems. And you, King Vegeta said, fixing Naruto with a hard stare, will need to perfect this dimensional technique before Frieza arrives. I won't condemn my people to some half-formed pocket of reality that collapses after my death. I need time in the crystal caverns, Naruto replied. The energy there resonates with my divine power, strengthening it. The king nodded curtly. Take what resources you require. Gine will act as your guide and liaison. His tone suggested the assignment was partly punishment for he are previously demonstrating too much familiarity with their divine visitor. As the meeting concluded and attendants dispersed, Bardock intercepted Gine in a shadowed corridor, his powerful frame blocking her path. Naruto, following at a discreet distance, paused out of sight but within earshot, his enhanced senses easily detecting their hushed conversation. You're getting too involved, Bardock said, voice low and intense. The king assigns you as liaison, because he considers you expendable if this deity proves false or dangerous. He's neither false nor dangerous to us, Gine replied with unusual firmness. You saw the visions yourself. You know what's coming. I know you've spent every free moment with him since his arrival. The others are talking. A pause, then Gine's voice, older than before. What others say hasn't concerned you in the past. Kakarot was born 4 months ago, yet you've visited the incubation chamber exactly twice. I'm securing our son's future by serving the combat division. Bardock retorted. What exactly are you securing by attending our supposed creator god like a dedicated handmaiden? Our entire race's survival, perhaps, she snapped, uncharacteristic anger flaring. Besides, our arrangement was always pragmatic, Bardock. Suitable genetic compatibility, nothing more. You made that abundantly clear after Raditz was born. Heavy silence followed before Bardock spoke again. Tone marginally softer. Just be careful, Gine. If he truly is divine, remember what the ancient texts say about gods and mortals. They use us as pieces in cosmic games we can't comprehend. Footsteps indicated Bardock's departure. Naruto waited several moments before continuing down the corridor, finding Gine still standing there, composure mostly restored. Her tail twitched with lingering agitation. You heard, she stated rather than asked. Enhanced senses, he admitted. I apologize for the intrusion on a private conversation. She shook her head, resuming walking toward the palace exit. Saiyan culture has different concepts of privacy than what you seem used to. We live communally, train communally, fight communally. But not mate communally, Naruto asked, immediately regretting the personal question. Surprisingly, Gine laughed, a genuine, musical sound rarely heard from Saiyans. No, though attachments are generally practical rather than romantic. Strong warriors pair with strong warriors to produce stronger offspring. Bardock is considered elite. His choosing someone of my lower status was unusual. But not based on emotional attachment. Saiyans experience emotions differently, she explained as they exited the palace into the cool night air. Aggression, pride, battle lust, these run strong. Gentler feelings are considered weaknesses. Particularly in males. They walked through darkened streets toward temporary quarters assigned near the wilderness boundary, close to the path leading to the crystal caverns. Unlike Earth, planet Vegeta had no moon this night, but 3 neighboring planets hung visible in the star-studded sky, casting subtle light across the landscape. "What about you?" Naruto asked, studying her profile in the planetary glow. "Do you consider gentler emotions weakness?" She slowed her pace, considering the question seriously. "I was born wrong by Saiyan standards. Too soft for purging missions. Too hesitant in delivering killing blows. It's why I failed in the warrior track despite adequate power levels." She glanced sideways at him. "Perhaps an error in your creation process." The question held no accusation, only genuine curiosity. Naruto reached for his awakening divine memories, searching for insight into the original Saiyan design. "Not an error," he replied finally. "A necessary counterbalance. The Saiyan race was created with diversity of purpose. Fierce warriors, yes, but also builders, thinkers, nurturers. Over time, the warrior aspect dominated, especially under Frieza's influence. But you represent an intentional and important aspect of Saiyan potential." Her expression softened with something that might have been relief. "That's not the traditional interpretation of our creation myths. Myths often drift from truth over millennia," Naruto said, suddenly feeling the weight of divine knowledge pressing more heavily. "The original Saiyans were created to be protectors of cosmic balance, not conquerors or planet clearers. They reached the simple structure assigned for Naruto's use, a dome-shaped building of red stone with minimal furnishings inside. By unspoken agreement, they settled on an exterior bench overlooking the wilderness rather than entering. If we survive Frieza," Gine said after comfortable silence had stretched between them, "if your sanctuary plan works, would you guide us back to that original purpose?" The question caught Naruto unprepared. Despite accessing more divine knowledge daily, he still thought primarily as Nar. Yuto Uzumaki, a shinobi with human concerns and human limitations. "I don't know," he answered honestly. "I'm still understanding what it means to be both Naruto and Ryu. I have responsibilities in my home dimension too. The other Earth," she murmured, "where my son will eventually go. Different dimensional plane, but yes." Gine's gaze lifted to the stars. "Tell me about it. Your Earth. Is it beautiful?" For the next hour, Naruto described the shinobi world, its forests and mountains, oceans and deserts, the hidden villages with their distinct cultures. He told her about Konoha, about friends left behind, about a war recently ended and peace finally taking root. Throughout his descriptions, Gine listened with rapt attention, occasionally asking insightful questions that revealed her intelligence and curiosity. "It sounds peaceful," she said when he finally fell silent. "Even with your shinobi conflicts, there's a gentleness to your world that ours lacks." "Not always gentle," Naruto corrected. "We've had our share of tyrants and genocides. But there's always been hope too, and people willing to fight for a better way. Like you." "I tried," he said simply. The conversation drifted to practical matters, preparations for the next day's journey to the crystal caverns, supplies needed, timeline for developing the dimensional sanctuary technique. Neither mentioned the increasingly apparent connection forming between them, though it hummed in the air like subtle electricity. At dawn, they departed for the caverns, traveling light and fast across the wilderness. Gine matched Naruto's pace easily. Her Saiyan physiology adapted to the planet's higher gravity and harsh conditions. Along the way, she pointed out native wildlife, 6-legged predators that hunted in packs. Massive flying creatures that soared on thermal currents, burrowing organisms that created complex tunnel systems beneath the red soil. Before Frieza's alliance, she explained as they paused atop a mesa, Saiyans lived more harmoniously with Vegeta's ecosystem. The ancient temples depict hunting rituals that honored prey and maintained balance. "More evidence that conquest wasn't your original nature," Naruto noted, scanning the horizon with senses that increasingly detected energies beyond normal perception. The crystal cavern's entrance remained as before, a narrow fissure guarded by ancient stone statues. This time, however, no royal blood was needed to gain entry. The stone recognized Naruto's divine energy, parting smoothly at his approach. Inside, bioluminescent crystals activated immediately, glowing gold rather than blue-green in response to his presence. The main chamber with its energy pool seemed to pulse in welcome as they entered, the liquid shimmering with increased luminosity. "What exactly do you need to do here?" Gine asked, her voice hushed in the sacred space. "Commune with the planet's core energy," Naruto explained, approaching the pool. Creating a stable pocket dimension requires anchoring it to existing dimensional boundaries. The crystal caverns sit at a natural thin point between realities. He removed his outer garments, keeping only pants as he prepared to enter the pool. The divine markings had spread since his first immersion. Subtle golden scales now traced patterns across his shoulders and down his spine, becoming visible when he channeled power. Gine watched with undisguised fascination. Your transformation progresses each day. The divine aspects integrate more fully as I access the memories and powers, Naruto confirmed. But I'm still fundamentally myself. Are you? She asked softly. Or is that what you need to believe to maintain your humanity? The question struck uncomfortably close to his private fears. Before he could respond, she continued. Perhaps becoming both is your true evolution, neither solely human nor solely divine, but something new that understands both perspectives. Her insight startled him. That's surprisingly profound. Quote, a faint blush colored her cheeks. I told you I was unsuited for the warrior track. I spend too much time thinking. A grievous sin among Saiyans, he teased, drawing an unexpected smile from her. The worst, she agreed with mock solemnity. Almost as bad as my inadequate bloodlust. Their shared laughter echoed pleasantly through the crystal chamber, seeming to make the luminescence brighten in response. Naruto realized with surprise that despite the looming catastrophe facing planet Vegeta, he felt momentarily content, connected to this place and this unexpected companion in ways that transcended their brief acquaintance. The moment passed as he refocused on their purpose. This will take several hours. You don't need to stay. I'll keep watch, she said firmly. The king may have authorized this visit, but not everyone accepts your divine status. There are traditionalists who might consider your presence here sacrilege. Naruto nodded gratefully before wading into the luminescent pool. The liquid embraced him like a living entity, recognizing its creator's essence within his hybrid form. He submerged completely, finding he could breathe normally within the fluid as it synchronized with his energy. Deep meditation followed as Naruto communed with the planetary energies flowing through the pool. His consciousness expanded outward, perceiving dimensional layers invisible to normal senses. He identified the boundaries, the thin points, the potential anchors for his sanctuary construct. Within his mindscape, Kurama observed the process with fascination. You're mapping realities like a cartographer charts coastlines. I can see why my divine self chose to experience mortal life, Naruto replied, manipulating vast energies with increasing confidence. Eternity as a disembodied cosmic force must become tedious. No ramen, for one thing. The Nine Tails snorted. Even as a god, your priorities remain questionable. Hours passed in the outside world while Naruto worked within the dimensional matrices, constructing the framework for a pocket reality that would sustain thousands of Saiyans indefinitely. He infused tea. He constructed with self-sustaining energy patterns, created atmospheric envelopes, established gravity fields, and seeded potential for ecosystems to develop. When he finally emerged from the pool, skin glistening with luminescent droplets, he found Gine sitting cross-legged nearby, alert but peaceful. She offered a water container, which he accepted gratefully. Did you succeed? She asked. The framework is established, he confirmed, feeling simultaneously exhausted and exhilarated. I've created anchor points around the planet that will allow us to transfer large groups quickly when the time comes. The sanctuary dimension itself exists now, empty but habitable. How large is it? Comparable to a small continent initially, but with programmed expansion as population grows. Gine's expression reflected wonder and relief. You've given us a future. A possibility of one, he cautioned. Much depends on what happens in the next 3 days. As they prepared to leave the caverns, a distant rumble shook the crystals. Dust filtering down from the ceiling. Naruto extended his senses outward, detecting a massive power signature entering the planet's atmosphere. Frieza, he breathed, recognizing the uniquely cold energy from his divine memories. He's early. Gine paled. We're not ready. The evacuation plans, the selected groups. We adapt, Naruto said firmly, gathering their belongings. Let's return to the city immediately. The journey back revealed ominous developments. Massive ships had appeared in orbit, visible even in daylight as dark shapes occluding the sun. Saiyan patrols had doubled, flying in tight formations that suggested heightened alert status. As they approached the city outskirts, emergency protocols appeared in effect, civilians clearing streets. Warriors assembling at strategic points. They were intercepted by Bardock before reaching the palace. His expression was grim, armor bearing fresh damage suggesting recent combat. "Where have you been?" he demanded. Frieza arrived with twice his usual guard complement. The king has been summoned to his ship with elite warriors only. No communication since. Has he attacked? Naruto asked, scanning the skies. Not openly, but something's happening. 3 Saiyan residential districts have been quietly evacuated by Frieza's forces for security inspections. Those taken haven't returned. Gine gasped. Which districts? Northeastern quadrants 7 through 9. Raditz's training facility is in Quadrant 8, she said, voice tight with sudden fear. Bardock's expression hardened. I checked. He was moved to southern facilities yesterday with other elite trainees. Safe for now. The minimal relief this provided was evident in her posture, though concern remained etched in her features. And Kakarot, still in the incubation chamber. Low-level infants aren't Frieza's concern. A familiar energy signature approached from above, Paragus, descending rapidly with obvious urgency. There you are. He addressed Naruto without preamble. The king has ordered your presence at the palace immediately. Frieza's scientists are conducting some kind of planetary scan and have detected unusual energy concentrations at the crystal caverns. They're preparing an expedition. They can't find the anchor points, Naruto said grimly. If Frieza discovers the dimensional preparations. Decision crystallized instantly. I need to create a distraction. Something significant enough to divert Frieza's attention from the caverns. What kind of distraction could possibly? Bardock began. Me. Naruto interrupted. The dragon god appearing publicly, away from the anchor points. Frieza fears divine power more than anything. It's the one force in the universe that truly threatens him. Gine grabbed his arm. That's suicide. You'd be exposing yourself directly to Frieza. Not necessarily, Naruto countered. I only need to be detected, not confronted directly. Pow. Flare significant enough to register on their instruments but mobile enough to avoid capture. Paragus looked skeptical but intrigued. It could work. Frieza's obsessively cautious about unknown powers. He might postpone the cavern expedition to investigate the new energy signature. I'm coming with you, Gine stated firmly. Absolutely not, Bardock growled. Your power level makes you a liability in any confrontation. Her eyes flashed dangerously. I'm not planning to fight. But I know the wilderness terrain better than most warriors, the caves, the dead ends, the false trails. Why need to create a misleading trail to draw Frieza's forces away from the anchor points? I can help. The logic was sound, though Naruto suspected her motives weren't entirely tactical. Before Bardock could argue further, Paragus intervened. We don't have time for debate. Frieza's scientists leave for the caverns within the hour. Whatever distraction you're planning, it needs to happen now. Quick planning followed. Naruto would create a massive divine energy flare in the mountains opposite the crystal caverns, drawing attention completely away from the anchor points. Gine would guide him through complex terrain to evade pursuit. Meanwhile, Bardock and Paragus would accelerate evacuation preparations under cover of the distraction, focusing on the most essential Saiyan scientists, culture keepers, and genetic diversity representatives. If we're separated, Naruto instructed, continue with evacuation preparations. I've established the sanctuary framework, it only needs activation. At the anchor points when the time comes. They separated with urgency, each to their assigned tasks. Naruto and Gine headed for the northwestern mountain range, moving at maximum speed through increasingly rugged terrain. Once sufficiently distant from both city and caverns, they paused on a barren peak overlooking a vast crimson desert. This should work, Naruto said, surveying the isolated location. No settlements nearby to be endangered, clear line of sight to Frieza's ships in orbit, and multiple escape routes. Gine pointed toward a jagged rock formation in the distance. That Kanyo N system has underground rivers leading all the way back to the southern plains. Energy signatures become distorted in the magnetic stone deposits. Perfect, Naruto nodded appreciatively. Ready. She moved to a sheltered position behind massive boulders as instructed, though her expression showed reluctance to take cover while he remained exposed. Naruto closed his eyes, centering himself. Within his mindscape, Kurama stirred. Are you sure about this? The nine tails rumbled. Deliberately attracting the attention of someone powerful enough to destroy planets seems contrary to self-preservation instincts. Sometimes the best defense is a confusing offense, Naruto replied. Besides, I need to test these divine powers under pressure sooner or later. Preferably later, when not on a doomed planet, Kurama grumbled. But lent his energy nonetheless, merging it with Naruto's awakening divine power. The initial surge manifested as golden light erupting skyward from Naruto's posy. Chion, a beacon visible for hundreds of miles. The energy column twisted into draconic shapes, massive serpentine forms coiling through the atmosphere, their roars echoing across the landscape in a disp. Lay designed to be as visually dramatic as possible. Planet Vegeta's red sky darkened as clouds formed spontaneously around the energy column, crackling with golden lightning. The display continued for several minutes, long enough to register on every sensor in the planet's vicinity but not so long that Naruto's position would be precisely triangulated. Then, as planned, he cut the power abruptly and dashed toward Gine's position. Now we move. Fast. They sprinted toward the canyon system, Naruto deliberately leaving traces of divine energy to create a misleading trail while staying just ahead of the pursuit he knew would come. Within minutes, the distant whine of spacecraft engines confirmed Frieza's forces had taken the bait. Down here, Gine directed, leading him into a nearly invisible crevice that opened into a broader underground passage. These tunnels connect to an entire subsurface network. The magnetic properties of the stone will mask energy signatures. The natural labyrinth proved perfect for their purpose, complex enough to lose pursuers but navigable with Gine's knowledge of key landmarks. They could hear Frieza's soldiers above ground occasionally, scouters beeping as they attempted to track the energy signature. After several hours of strategic movement, they paused in a larger cavern where an underground river provided fresh water. Distant sounds of pursuit had faded, suggesting their evasion tactics were working. You know these caverns remarkably well, Naruto observed, sipping cool water cupped in his hands. Gine settled against a smooth stone wall, allowing herself to relax slightly. I spent much time exploring the wilderness as a child. Another sign of my unfitness as a proper Saiyan, curiosity about nature rather than exclusive focus on combat. I'm beginning to think the proper Saiyan concept has drifted significantly from my original design, Naruto remarked, his divine memories continuing to integrate and clarify. What were we meant to be? She asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. Naruto closed his eyes, accessing clearer memories than before. Guardians, he said finally. Powerful enough to confront cosmic threats, adaptable enough to evolve as needed. The transformation abilities, Uzaru form, the Super Saiyan potential, these were defensive adaptations against forces that could threaten entire worlds. Not conquerors. Strength without purpose becomes merely destruction, he quoted from ancient wisdom surfacing in his consciousness. The first Saiyans understood this. They built a culture around controlled power, directed toward protection rather than dominance. Gine considered this silently before asking, could we become that again? Is it too late? That's the question, isn't it? Naruto moved to sit beside her, close but not touching. The sanctuary dimension offers that opportunity, a fresh start, free from Frieza's influence, with knowledge of your original purpose. Their conversation continued as they rested, moving from philosophical questions about Saiyan potential to practical concerns about the evacuation plans. The intimacy of the setting, isolated from others, voices soft in the dimly lit cavern, created a space where Gine spoke more freely than she had previously, revealing depths of thought uncommon among her warrior race. I've never told anyone this, she admitted during a discussion of Saiyan child rearing practices, but I wanted to raise Raditz myself rather than sending him directly to training creches. Bardock considered the idea absurd, of course. Proper warriors develop through structured combat training from earliest childhood. And Kakarot? Naruto asked gently. The same, she sighed. Though his power level at birth was so low, there was brief discussion of simply. She couldn't finish the sentence. Culling, Naruto supplied, accessing knowledge of Saiyan practices that troubled his human sensibilities. Another deviation from original design. Early Saiyans valued diverse abilities, not just raw power metrics. Their conversation paused as distant sounds echoed through the tunnels, not pursuit, but something larger. The cavern vibrated slightly, loose pebbles dancing across the stone floor. Seismic activity, Naruto questioned, extending his senses outward. Gine shook her head, expression growing concerned. Planet Vegeta doesn't experience natural earthquakes. This is something else. They moved cautiously toward the surface, emerging hours later in a different region than their entry point. The red sky had darkened to deep crimson, but not from natural sunset. Massive ships now filled the orbit visibly from the ground, far more than the usual Frieza force complement. He's gathering his entire armada, Gine whispered, horror dawning in her voice. This isn't a routine visit. Naruto extended his senses to maximum range, detecting chaotic energy patterns throughout the planet. Something's happening in the capital. We need to get back immediately. They abandoned stealth for speed, flying directly toward the city. As they approached, the devastation became apparent. Entire districts reduced to rubble, fires burning unchecked. Saiyan bodies littering the ground. Not battle damage, but systematic execution. The purge has already begun, Naruto realized grimly. Frieza's starting with suspected resistance areas before destroying the planet itself. Quote, Raditz, Gine gasped, immediately changing direction toward the southern training facilities. Naruto followed, knowing her need to find her firstborn would override all other concerns. The training complex appeared intact from outside, but eerily silent. They landed in the central courtyard, senses alert for threats. The facility had clearly been evacuated rapidly. Training equipment abandoned mid-use, meals left half-eaten in the commissary. They're gone, Gine said, confusion mixing with fear as they searched empty dormitories. The entire facility, not destroyed, Naruto noted, examining the orderly evacuation evidence. Removed. Understanding dawned on Gine's face. The evacuation plan. Bardock must have started with the training facility. i.e. while we were creating the distraction. Naruto extended his senses, detecting faint traces of the dimensional energy he'd established at the anchor points. You're right. They've already begun transferring Saiyans to the sanctuary dimension. Relief washed over Gine's features, quickly replaced by new urgency. Kakarot, we need to reach the incubation chamber. The medical sciences building remained operational when they arrived, though operating with minimal staff. Most scientists had fled or been evacuated, leaving only automated systems and a few dedicated medical technicians. The king ordered removal of all research materials and critical personnel 6 hours ago, explained an elderly Saiyan doctor they encountered. No explanation given, but rumors of Frieza's purge reached us shortly after. Most fled to off-world assignments or hiding. The infants, Gine demanded. Advanced incubation subjects were evacuated first. Lower-rated specimens. The doctor gestured vaguely. Why toward the remaining incubation chambers visible through a viewing window? Perhaps 24 fluid-filled pods still contained developing Saiyan infants. Gine pressed against the glass, scanning desperately until locating a specific pod. There, Kakarot. The child floated peacefully in nutrient fluid, tiny tail occasionally twitching, blissfully unaware of the apocalypse approaching his world. A monitor displayed his vital signs and consistently low power level rating. I need to get him out, Gine stated, moving toward the chamber entrance. The doctor blocked her path. Impossible, Earl. Why removal from the development cycle would compromise viability? Besides, launch preparations are already programmed. Launch? Naruto questioned. Emergency protocol, the doctor explained. In planetary crisis scenarios, viable genetics are preserved through off-world dispersal. These remaining specimens have been assigned frontier worlds for infiltration and eventual conquest. Gine's expression hardened. My son is not a specimen. I'm taking him to the sanctuary dimension with the others. What sanctuary dimension? The doctor looked genuinely confused. The evacuation transports headed for Frieza's secondary bases in the Noro system. Naruto and Gine exchanged alarmed glances. That's not possible, she whispered. Bardock would never. A new voice interrupted from the doorway. Bardock isn't in command of evacuation protocols. They turned to find Paragus standing there, flanked by several elite warriors and scientists, all wearing the distinctive insignia of King Vegeta's personal guard. Where have you been? He demanded of Naruto. The distraction worked too well. Frieza accelerated his timeline in response. The purge began hours ago. We were evading pursuit, Naruto explained quickly. What's happening with the evacuation? This doctor says Saiyans are being sent to Frieza's bases, not the sanctuary dimension. Paragus approached, lowering his voice. Politics, he said disgustedly. The king refused to trust his people's survival entirely to a dimensional pocket created by an unproven deity. He arranged traditional evacuation for his chosen lights to Frieza's bases where they'll pose as loyal subjects who oppose the rebellion. What rebellion? Gine asked. The one Frieza invented to justify the purge, Paragus replied grimly. Apparently, intelligence reported a Saiyan uprising being planned. Completely fabricated, of course, but sufficient pretext for him to eliminate potential threats. And the sanctuary dimension, Naruto pressed. Bardock proceeded with that plan for those the king considered expendable: children, scientists without royal favor, lower-class warriors. They've been gathered at the anchor points throughout the day. Relief mingled with frustration in Naruto's mind. At least some evacuation was proceeding, though the divided approach would save fewer than a coordinated effort. We need to get Kakarot, Gine insisted. Returning to the immediate concern, Paragus shook his head. Launch sequences are already initiated. These development pods have been programmed for specific coordinates, changing day to nations now would trigger security protocols and potentially alert Frieza's forces to this location. Then we'll take the whole pod, Naruto decided, moving toward the chamber. I can maintain its functions with divine energy until we reach an anchor point. Before they could implement this plan, a massive explosion rocked the building, throwing them all off balance. Through the windows, they saw a battle cruiser descending toward the medical district. Frieza's forces had found them. No time, Paragus shouted above the alarms now blaring throughout the facility. We must reach the Nears T anchor point immediately or be caught in the purge. Gine pressed her hands against the incubation chamber glass, tears streaming down her face as she looked at her son floating peacefully in his pod. Kakarot, she whispered. Naruto placed a hand on her shoulder. His pod is programmed for Earth, he said softly. I can see the coordinates. In that timeline, he survives, becomes a great hero, avenges the Saiyan race. Achieves the Super Saiyan transformation. It's his destiny, and mine is to never see him grow up, she replied, voice breaking. Another explosion, closer this time. The facility's structure groaned ominously. We have to go, Paragus urged, already herding his group toward the exit. Naruto made a split-second decision. Placing both hands against the glass, he channeled divine energy directly into Kakarot's pod, creating a momentary connection between his consciousness and the infant's. What are you doing? Gine asked. Insurance, Naruto replied, golden energy flowing from his hands into the child. I'm placing a fragment of divine awareness within him, dormant but present. A connection that transcends dimensions. No matter what happens, part of us will always be with him. The energy transfer complete, Naruto turned to Gine. We have to leave now. His path is fixed. It has to be Earth, alone, or everything changes. With visible anguish, she placed her palm against the glass one final time. Survive, my son. Become strong. Remember who you are, even if you never know us. They fled as the medical facility began collapsing behind them, Frieza's foe. RCES systematically destroying the district. Paragus led them through service tunnels toward the northwestern sector where one of the dimensional anchor points had been established. Bardock has been coordinating from there all day, he explained as they ran. Several hundred Saiyans already transferred to the sanctuary dimension. When they arrived at the designated location, an ancient temple complex repurposed as evacuation center, chaos reigned. Hundreds of Saiyans crowded the area, some fighting to be included in the evacuation, others attempting to maintain order. At the center stood Bardock, bloodied but unbowed, directing operations with grim efficiency. His eyes widened momentarily upon seeing Gine and Naruto, but he quickly resumed his commanding demeanor. About time. The Ancho. Our point is destabilizing with repeated use. We need your divine energy to reinforce it before transferring the remaining groups. Naruto assessed the situation quickly. The dimensional passage he'd see. Reed had weakened with hundreds of transfers, its edges fraying visibly to his enhanced perception. Beyond the immediate crisis, he sensed Frieza's flagship moving into position above the planet's sea. Or, the final preparation for total destruction. Everyone needs to move through now, he announced. I'll stabilize the passage, but we have minutes at most before Frieza destroys the planet. What about the other evacuation groups? Gine asked, scanning the crowd desperately. Raditz, already through, Bardock confirmed tersely. Along with most children and essential personnel. These are the last groups, mainly warriors who stayed to protect the evacuation. Naruto moved to the center of the temple where the dimensional anchor pulsed erratically. Placing his hands directly on the energy nexus, he channeled divine power to stabilize and strengthen the passage. The chaotic energy patterns smoothed immediately, the portal expanding to accommodate larger groups. Move through now, Bardock commanded, and Saiyans began entering the dimensional passage in organized waves. As the evacuation proceeded, Naruto maintained the portal's integrity while simultaneously monitoring Frieza's movements through extended divine senses. The tyrant had positioned his ship optimally for planetary destruction and begun gathering enormous destructive energy, a technique Naruto's divine memory recognized as the supernova attack. Time's nearly up, he warned as the final groups prepared to enter the passage. Frieza's attack will launch within minutes. Bardock approached, surprising Naruto by clasping his shoulder in a warrior's gesture of respect. Whether you're truly our creator returned or just an extraordinary being, you've given us a chance we wouldn't have had otherwise. The sanctuary dimension will preserve our race. Quote, you need to go through, Naruto urged. I'll follow once everyone's safely across. I stay, Bardock stated firmly. Someone needs to witness our world's end. Someone needs to face Frieza, even in futile defiance. Before Naruto could argue, Bardock turned to Gine, who stood nearby directing the final evacuees. Their eyes met in a moment of silent calm. Unication that contained more meaning than their previous interactions had suggested. Keep our people safe, Bardock said simply. Teach our son who he comes from, what our race can be. Gine's eyes widened at the implied acknowledgement of her special connection to Naruto, but she nodded solemnly, accepting both Bardock's blessing and his choice to remain behind. With the final evacuees through the portal, only Naruto, Gine, and Bardock remained. The temple shuddered as earthquakes began, precursors to the planet's imminent destruction. Go, Bardock told them, turning toward the temple entrance. My path ends here, but the Saiyan race continues through you. With that, he launched himself skyward, flying directly toward Frieza's ship in a final, defiant challenge that Naruto's divine memory recognized as a fixed point in the timeline. Bardock's last stand, witnessing the supernova attack and experiencing a prophetic vision of his son's eventual victory before death. We need to go now, Naruto urged Gine, maintaining the portal with increasing difficulty as the planet's energies destabilized around them. She hesitated, watching Bardock's diminishing figure against the crimson sky. He always was the bravest of us, she murmured, before turning resolutely toward the dimensional passage. Together they stepped through the portal, divine energy swirling around them as they traversed the boundary between dimensions. Behind them, planet Vegeta trembled in its final moments, preparing to fulfill its role as the catalyst for events that would reshape the cosmos. In the space between realities, as they traveled toward the sanctuary dimension, Naruto felt Gine's hand find his, a gesture that bridged mortal and divine, creator and creation, present and future. Whatever came next, they would face it together, carrying the legacy of a destroyed world toward a new beginning. Chapter 2 End. The End. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.